If you've ever envisioned yourself as a leader, stay tuned because I've got some more secrets for you. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And we're continuing on a series based upon the book Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun by Wess Roberts, MD. And giving you a whole bunch already. Let's continue because leadership is such a huge subject. There's a bunch of different nuances, things to learn, things to understand. So let's get right to it. I'm quoting from the book and also giving you my 2 cents. Stewardship. Our leaders must have the essential quality of stewardship, a caretaker quality. They must serve in a manner that encourages confidence, trust, and loyalty. Subordinates are not to be abused. They are to be guided, developed, and rewarded for their performances. Punishment is to be reserved as a consequence of last resort and sparingly applied only when all other attempts have failed to encourage the rebellious to comply. Without a flock, there can be no shepherd. Without an army, there can be no battle captains. Without subordinates, there can be no leaders. Leaders are therefore caretakers of the interests and well-being of those and the purposes that they serve. Those of you who are overly ambitious may attempt to acquire these qualities over a short period. As I, Attila, have found in my own life, these qualities of leadership simply take time, learning, and experience to develop. There are few who will find shortcuts to achieve these particular goals. Okay, lots of stuff to go over here. First of all, rule number 1, leaders are there to serve and not to be served. Servant leadership, which means you are developing people all the time. It's kind of like when you have children, isn't it? The baby comes, the babies are not serving you, you're serving them. And you're developing them all along the way. You're passing along things that you know so that they can grow and become regular people that you want to develop. Does that sound any different than business? Servant leadership. Servant leadership. Okay, the other thing that you have to know is that, no pun intended based upon Attila the Hun, but Rome isn't built in a day. You will become sort of like a fine wine. The more time you have, the more seasoning you have, the more experience you have, makes you a better leader. You've been there, you've done that. Something will come up and you won't want to have such a knee-jerk reaction. You'll say, oh, I've seen that before. I'm not going to worry about that. I know how to solve that. I know who to call to solve that. I know who I can put in charge of solving that. That's what leadership is all about. It's experience. It takes time. And I know you want to rush it, but you need to be patiently impatient. You need to be patient knowing that you're going to acquire more and more skill, and impatient in the fact that you want to acquire that skill right now. Okay. You must have resilience to overcome personal misfortunes, discouragement, rejection, and disappointment. People are starving for leadership. They're starving for it. They're looking for leaders. When you have the resilience to overcome personal misfortunes and stuff, also known as life, that comes up, people look up to you. In other words, as Bob Anderson used to always say, never let them see you sweat. You are in control. Whatever happened, you expected that and much, much more. Does that make sense? One of the qualities of leadership, one of the traits of leadership, is that you are a calming influence. You must have the courage, creativity, and stamina to focus on accomplishing your responsibilities through directed, delegated efforts of subordinates. Understand that you cannot do everything. You're the coach. As the coach, you don't get to shoot the ball, you don't get to rebound the ball, you don't get to be, a defender. What you do get to do is to direct your subordinates, people that you have trained to perform these functions. Same thing is true in sports, same thing is true in business. All right? At one point, you're a player on the team, but you've advanced. You've become a leader. Why? Because you know how to do it, and more importantly, you know how to show other people how to do it, and you know how to constantly be inspecting what they're doing so that they can make improvements, little nuances, big changes, whatever is necessary. That's what leadership's all about. You must recognize and accept that your greatness will be made possible through the extremes of your personality. The very extremes that sometimes make for campfire satire and legendary stories. Okay, I'm a perfect example of that. I'm telling you all the time about Bob Anderson, my mentor. He did this, he did that, so on and so forth. And it's the stories, the eccentricities of a personality make good stories. Remember, facts tell and stories sell. And that works for leadership as well. So if you have some, a personality quirk or something like that people will remember, that works to your benefit if you allow it to. If you allow it to. All right? Bob Anderson was legendary in our company with so many different quirks and so many great stories. When he came in, everybody would sit in the room, and that was a good thing. He used that to his advantage. He didn't have to say attention. When he walked into the room, you gave him the attention. You must not let your desire to lead take the form of overeagerness. This would cause failure for many. You must be willing to temper your lust to lead with preparation, experience, and opportunity. That's another way of saying, hey, good leaders don't have knee-jerk reactions. What they do is they reflect upon your past experience, see a similar situation that evolved previously, and say, how do I solve that? It's a slow process, but once they figure it out, then they are decisive and act quickly. You must remember that success in your office will depend largely upon your sustained willingness to work hard. Sweat rules over inspiration. We're talking about leading by example here, folks. Simple as that. When people see that you're working hard, now, there's a difference between working hard laboring and working hard planning, developing, evolving. That's a key thing. So, you don't want to, if you're the leader, you don't want to appear that you're laboring, because if you're laboring, why would anybody want to be a leader? That means you just have to labor more. But if they see that you're preparing, if they see that you've spent time getting things ready, setting the table, as it were, that's how you gain that respect. Sweat rules over inspiration. You must be committed to persevere even in the face of opposition and challenge. Hey, you're going to face challenges. Once again, never let them see you sweat. Remain calm. You always know, hey, this is what we're going to do. So let's get together, everybody gather around. Here's the game plan. You must be determined to apply massive common sense in solving complex problems. Here's one of the differences between the 95% crowd and the 5% crowd. The 95% crowd, they have knee-jerk reactions. They get excited. I got to do something. The 5%ers always take a moment, stop, think, and don't react, but they plan. And they have a plan, and usually they have a plan B as well. Just like coaching a basketball game, okay? You start off and you said, okay, we're going to do this. Then at halftime, you find yourself down by 10 points. What do? I got to make a new game plan. I got to have a new starting line. But as the coach, if you're there and you're all excited and yes, yelling and screaming, you're out of control. Your players are going to be out of control. Always under control. Hey, this is what happened. Okay, this is how we're going to overcome that. You must not be threatened by capable contemporaries or subordinates. Rather, you must be wise in selecting capable captains to achieve those things a chieftain can attain only through strong subordinates. Some people, when they get to a position of leadership, become fearful of quality people that they have in their orbit and try and keep them down. That's exactly the wrong thing to do. What you want to do is encourage them, inspire them. If they become better than you, hey, the cream always rises to the top. So by you trying to keep them down, that's not going to keep them down. They're going to get there anyway. The point is, if you're able to utilize their areas of excellence, that not only enhances them, guess who else builds it up? You discovered it. You were able to make use of it. Isn't that what leaders do? Is take what they have available to them and come up with and make the very best cake that they possibly can make? Does that make some sense? It's as simple as that. The good leaders don't look to keep people down, they look to rise people up. You must be willing to make unrecognized and thankless personal sacrifice for those you serve and those you lead. This sacrifice may take the form of absence from a tribal hunt, spending extraordinary energies and patience to develop subordinates, and tending to the needs of these subordinates at times when your own needs go unfulfilled. You must be willing to bypass a festival in your own camp if a situation in another camp requires your presence and attention. What does that mean? It means as a leader, you don't get paid for doing the work. You get paid for the responsibility of making sure that that work is done. Get it? As a leader, you paid for responsibility. As the coach, you don't get paid to put the ball in the basket personally. You get paid to make sure your team puts the ball in the basket. That's the difference. You have responsibility. What does responsibility mean? It's the same thing as being a mom or dad, being a parent. If your child is sick, you got to be with your child. You've got to take care of your family. You are there to serve. When times are difficult, you're there with your kid, aren't you? You're there putting your arm around your son, giving him a lifesaver, saying, hey, sweetheart, that happened to me. Don't worry about it. I'm going to help you make you feel better. That's what you do as a leader. You have to have that empathy. I can feel what you feel. Now I'm going to show you how to overcome that feeling of negativity and put you back in a positive mode. Does that make sense? You must have a passion to succeed, a passion that drives you to prepare yourself and your Huns to excel. You got to be competitive. You got to want to win. It's as simple as that. You got to say, I'm not going to let that guy beat me, or I'm not going to let that lady beat me. We're going to be the top group. We're going to be the best. That's our objective. You have to be competitive. And then when you're competitive, and most people are competitive, and when you're competitive and you bring it to the other people in your group, you're going to find that the results you get are going to be much better. So competition equals cash. You must be willing to learn, to listen, and to grow in your awareness and abilities to perform the duties of your office. This is not often accomplished without tremendous effort and sacrifice of other interests. Two key lessons here. When I first started with the company COPA to become answer to that, to be a management trainee, to be a manager. All right, well, I accomplished that. And in accomplishing that, the company had contests, production contests. If you produce this much, you got to go on this trip. Well, I was going on my very first trip with this company. I'm excited. I'm going on a real exotic trip. My goodness, I don't have to pay for anything. They're paying for it. I'm bringing my significant other person with me. Wow, this is going to be terrific. And it was. What I did on that trip was I had a pad, a paper, a tape recorder with me. And I sat next to all of the other different managers of prominence. And I knew which ones to choose. I asked beforehand. Plus we had a company paper so you could see who the producers were. And I made it a point to introduce myself and to sit down with them and to get advice from them. Wow! Going on an exotic trip is great. The biggest part of that trip that I remember is all of the information, the little tidbits, the little nuggets that I got from people that were also managers in other parts of the country. And not only that, but you're building up a rapport. You can pick up the phone. Hey, this is happening to me, right now. Have you ever had that type of thing? Oh yeah, let me tell you how to handle that. You build a rapport. Does that make some sense? All right, so you got to be willing to listen, to learn, and to grow in your awareness. And not only that, you got to be anxious. You got to want to do that. And you got to recognize that when you're in that position, you can't do all the things that the 95% group does. That's what makes them 95%ers. The 5%ers, you have to say, I can't do that anymore. My position doesn't allow it. And I'm not talking about ridiculous arrogance. I'm talking about recognizing your position and wanting to maintain it. You have to adhere to habits that are going to help you grow and help you maintain your position of leadership. You must be willing to remain your natural self and not take an aura of false pride in your continence. Let me be candid. I had to look up what continence is. You know what continence is? It's the expression on your face. So you can't be, like, all right, I'm such a big shot now. Whoa. You gotta be one of the regular guys. When we would go on these trips, with people from other offices, I always made it a point to go to the different tables, where the other offices were, introduce myself, make a few jokes. I would know who the top producers were. I would shake hands with everybody. And then people would say, he's like a regular guy. And then I was the one that ended up writing the article in the company newspaper. People loved reading the articles. I tried to be funny. But the point was, you try to be yourself. You try and be authentic. You can be a leader and still be authentic. In fact, those are the people that are the best leaders. All right, next time we get together, more leadership secrets. And remember, as always, hey, don't ration the passion, fashion the passion. I'm Eli's dad.